Have you ever heard of a love story so powerful it brought down empires? This isn't a Hollywood script. It's the real, raw, and earth-shattering romance of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. A story that didn't just break hearts, but redrew the map of the ancient world. Let's travel back to 41 BC. Rome is a powder keg, a republic tearing itself apart. Power is split between three men: Octavian, Caesar's cunning heir; Lepidus, the fading senior statesman; and our man, Mark Antony, the charismatic, battle-hardened general who was Caesar's right-hand man. Antony controls the East, the wealthiest part of the Roman world, and he needs money and resources to maintain his power. Enter Cleopatra. She's not just the queen of Egypt. She's a brilliant political strategist, a linguist, and the inheritor of a divine legacy. She needs Rome's protection to secure her throne and the future of her kingdom, the last great bastion of Hellenistic culture. Their first meeting wasn't just a state summons, it was a spectacle. Antony summoned Cleopatra to Tarsus in modern-day Turkey to answer for her supposed support of his rivals. But Cleopatra didn't arrive as a subordinate. She sailed up the Cydnus River in a magnificent golden barge, dressed as the goddess Venus, surrounded by attendants dressed as cupids. The air was thick with perfume. The sound of flutes filled the city. Antony, who saw himself as the god Dionysus, was completely captivated. He expected a queen, but he found a goddess. That night, she didn't just answer his questions. She enchanted him, hosting a banquet so lavish it became legendary. From that moment, a partnership was forged. But was it love, or was it the ultimate political alliance? The truth is, it was both. For Antony, Cleopatra offered access to Egypt's immense wealth, its grain, and its powerful navy. For Cleopatra, Antony was the shield against Rome's insatiable expansion and a partner to help her restore the glory of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Antony followed her back to Alexandria, and the winter of 41 to 40 BC was one of legendary indulgence. They formed their own society, the inimitable livers, dedicated to a life of pleasure, feasting, and nightly escapades through the city in disguise. It was a whirlwind of passion and politics. Away from the rigid, judgmental eyes of Rome, Antony felt alive. In Alexandria, he wasn't just a Roman general. He was a king consort, an equal partner to a powerful queen. Cleopatra soon gave birth to their twins, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene. But the real world couldn't be kept at bay forever. Back in Rome, Antony's wife, Fulvia, had waged a war against his rival Octavian, a war that ultimately failed. With his reputation in Rome in tatters and his alliance with Octavian strained, Antony was forced to return. To patch things up, he did the unthinkable. He married Octavian's sister, the virtuous and respected Octavia. For 3 years, Antony was the dutiful Roman husband and politician. Cleopatra, back in Egypt, must have watched from afar, patiently managing her kingdom and raising their children alone. It must have felt like a betrayal. But she was a pragmatist. She knew the game. She waited. Her wait paid off. By 37 BC, Antony's ambitions in the East were rekindled. He needed to launch a massive campaign against the Parthian Empire, Rome's greatest enemy. And who had the resources he needed? Cleopatra. He sent for her in Antioch, and their reunion was electrifying. This was no longer just a passionate affair. It was a recommitment. He acknowledged their twins and their third child, Ptolemy Philadelphus. He was choosing her and her world over Rome. This choice came with a massive political statement. In an audacious public ceremony in Alexandria known as the Donations of Alexandria, Antony and Cleopatra sat on golden thrones. He declared her queen of kings and named their children as rulers of vast eastern territories, some of which were not even under Roman control yet. To the Romans, this was blasphemy. Octavian, a master of propaganda, seized on this. He painted Antony as a man bewitched, a Roman who had gone native, abandoning his heritage for a foreign enchantress. He portrayed Cleopatra as a decadent, power-hungry seductress aiming to rule Rome itself. The propaganda war was brutal and effective. Octavian convinced the Roman Senate that Antony was no longer one of them. He skillfully framed the coming conflict not as a civil war between the Romans, but as a righteous war against a foreign enemy, Queen Cleopatra. In 30 BC, he read Antony's will to the Senate, a will that allegedly confirmed his loyalty to Cleopatra and his wish to be buried beside her in Alexandria. This was the final nail in the coffin. Rome declared war, not on Antony, but on Cleopatra. The final act of this epic drama took place at sea, the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. It was a colossal naval clash. On one side, the disciplined, agile fleet of Octavian, commanded by the brilliant Admiral Agrippa. On the other, the larger, heavier ships of Antony and Cleopatra. The battle was a disaster for them. Outmaneuvered and trapped, Cleopatra's squadron broke through the Roman lines and fled back to Egypt. Seeing her leave, Antony, in a moment of what his own men saw as utter desperation, abandoned his fleet and followed her. His forces, leaderless and demoralized, surrendered. The war was lost. They returned to Alexandria, their world crumbling around them. Octavian's legions advanced on Egypt, meeting little resistance. The end was near. As Octavian's forces entered the city, a false report reached Antony that Cleopatra had taken her own life. Devastated, believing he had lost everything, Antony fell on his sword. But the wound was not immediately fatal. As he lay dying, he learned that Cleopatra was still alive, barricaded in her mausoleum. His loyal guards carried him to her, and he was hoisted up to the monument's window, dying in her arms. It was a tragic, Shakespearean end for the great general. Left alone, Cleopatra was captured by Octavian. He planned to parade her through the streets of Rome in his triumph, a living trophy to symbolize his absolute victory. But Cleopatra would not be humiliated. She was the last pharaoh of Egypt, a descendant of kings. In her final, defiant act, she arranged for a venomous snake, an asp, a symbol of divine royalty in Egypt, to be smuggled to her in a basket of figs. She chose a pharaoh's death over a Roman's humiliation. With her death, the Ptolemaic dynasty, which had ruled Egypt for 300 years, came to an end. Egypt became a Roman province, its vast wealth now funding Octavian's rise. He would soon become Augustus, the first Roman emperor, ushering in centuries of the Roman Empire. So, what is the legacy of this love story? It's a tale of ambition, passion, and clashing cultures. A story where personal love and political destiny were so intertwined that one could end exist without the other. Their romance wasn't the sole cause of the Roman Republic's fall, but it was the catalyst, the flashpoint that ignited the final war. It shaped the world we inherited, proving that sometimes the most intimate human emotions can have the most epic, world-changing consequences. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If you love stories where history and humanity collide, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. We'll see you in the next one.